I should say it's a sad evening for many people in Scotland. I mean, what's the feeling from the people that you've spoken to?
Well, I think everybody's of the same. Anyone who's for Scottish independence is of the same mind and of the same feeling. Yeah, it's a sad day. It's a very sad day. We didn't, we had 62% for Remain, and we've always been a much more internationally orientated country. Tradition is very much part of that, and it's something that we wanted to continue. But again, the powers that be have decided with the recent election, we've gone back to a kind of Tory majority that does not represent Scotland. And it's like a history that's gone on for so long now. I mean, it happened during the Thatcher years, when Thatcher decimated a lot of Scottish industry. And again, it wasn't representative of the people of Scotland. And I just think it's time that we left. And it's time not only that we left, but that, the South England let us go.
Well, obviously you're looking for Scotland to represent itself, and there are calls for a second independence referendum. The stark reality is you're not going to have one, are you? Because Westminster, Boris Johnson, simply won't allow it.
Yeah, that looks like the stark reality, but we are persistent and we will go on until we get it. It's the door isn't closed. It's still a door which has got it's slightly ajar, and we'll exploit that for all it's worth.
Well, Brian, I've got Norman Baker here. I've got some sympathy with the position you find yourself in democratically, but I have to say, how can you possibly secure this referendum with the government in Westminster with a big majority and so strongly against it? What's the tactic?
The tactic? Well, it's hard to say what the tactic is. I think the tactic is that we just have to hold true to what we believe and make the people of Scotland, they see how they've been betrayed on this whole process.
But the people of Catalonia felt they were betrayed, and you don't want to start going down that route, do you?
Well, no, I think that we're much more cannier than that. Scotland has achieved this far without any major kind of conflict, and I still think it's a negotiated thing that can be negotiated. But I do think that the time has come that Scotland does move on and move away, because it's gone on far too long. I mean, it really has gone on far too long. I mean, I'm a recent convert. I mean, I only came to Scottish independence really just at the time of the referendum, when I realised that when I looked at my own history and I saw how Scotland had been treated, and it's been treated shamefully, absolutely shamefully, by
Brian, I'm Diane James. I'm a former MEP. I ceased to be an MEP in July of this year. I'm intrigued with, your support for the referendum, and particularly also Nicola's assessment that just by breaking up the union, she can then take Scotland back into the EU. And yet the EU's made it absolutely clear that Scotland doesn't meet the criteria, certainly on the economic side, to become a member again. So can you somehow cast an eye over this and give us some idea as to how you think you can get round this?
We need to take, the business into our own hands, and I do think we need the time to actually acquit ourselves in that direction, and I think we will acquit ourselves in that direction. I think we will become viable, but we just need the opportunity and the chance to do so. At the moment, we're in a kind of no man's land, and everybody's talking on our behalf, but nobody's actually saying what is viable for the Scots. And it's certainly viable to make the move, and it's certainly viable to try and achieve some kind of separation. I think it's tragic it's come to this, I have to say. But I just am sick of my country being, constantly undermined by
But some are saying that the economics of the SNP are not viable, and they're spending too much time talking about independence and not running the country. Education, for example.
That's an old argument, and that's not necessarily a valid argument, quite frankly. And people will always say that. People will always make that stand. And I think the SNP have been doing a pretty good job, and they clearly have been doing a good job, or they wouldn't have got elected. It's such a, so you've also got to look at how we did in the election, and we did extraordinarily well.
Brian, you said that it's tragic in the fact that it's gone along this path, but it doesn't mean that it can't be stopped, can it? Do you think there's any way that you can halt the divisions and revive the union?
Well, I think it's hard. I think that we've been so lambasted for so long. I think it's very, very difficult to revive a union. You know, I think it really is impossible. You know, the Scotland I grew up in was very much North Britain. And Scotland, you know, because of, and you can look at it historically, we've had wars which interrupted any of our progress. The Depression, you know, for the first 50 years of the 20th century, democracy just didn't function at all. And it's only subsequently, you know, that really, in the advent of the 50s and 60s, and finally in the 70s and 80s, Scotland very much became its own person. And it is very much its own person. It's a different country. We're a different culture. And it's that difference that we should be allowed to celebrate and follow through on. And that's been the problem. You know, people, and this is what annoys me, is people who talk about Scotland really do not understand Scotland. And that's what really, really annoys me. And it's annoyed me for many, many years.